Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa, a certified stress management coach specializing in productivity and organizing, the founder of Positively Productive Systems, and the host of the Positively Living podcast. I help people make space for what matters most in their lives through simplicity, self-care, and structure. And this includes guidance on decluttering, time and stress management, and systems and habits.
Hi, Lisa. So great to be chatting to you again. I'm Bev, and as a transformational life coach and relationships coach, I support people in resolving challenges while simultaneously enhancing the joy in their relationships. Relationships are our most challenging and joyous experiences in our lives.
And so critical. And I'm excited that we've developed ours and that we're here today. We met more than a year ago now, and recently reconnected in a space where we were able to support people during these uncertain times. You know, with COVID-19, it has been a global impact for us. And what really came up for us in these calls was how many people are curious about so many things that just aren't being talked about, like what exactly is coaching? What do coaches do? Which is today's topic. And, you know, how do we deal with feeling unsafe, and how can we become more resilient? And if we are coaching others, what can we do to share and you know, there were so many questions. And what became clear for you and me is that this is a way that we could serve others, that we could serve by having these conversations together. So that's what we're starting with today. And we might as well start with, what is coaching, right?
Absolutely, because that's the question I think we get asked the most often, isn't it? So thanks, Lisa. And I'm so excited to be sharing this project with you too, and that we came up with it to serve at this time. This is what we feel we can do right now. So my understanding is that by having a conversation, by being in relation with each other, we get to explore our feelings and experiences. Otherwise, we could just buy a self-help book and work it out for ourselves, or not. But especially at times like this, when people are feeling so lonely and loneliness is heightened, to me, being connected is core. And for me, it's about helping people live bigger lives than they're living right now. It's about giving them a space of presence, just a space where creativity, confidence, and clarity can rise up and where they're born. It's about understanding what triggers people into reacting to their world as their younger selves, rather than responding to it, rather than being informed by a feeling and then responding. Sometimes people react from a much younger place. And from that, being able to see what possibilities are available to you as the more mature adult with an expanded adult perspective. That's how I see coaching, as really giving people that opportunity to have a broader, a bigger life that they can live.
I love that. And the words that I love that came up for me when you were describing that, the one especially is possibilities. And it's funny because when I was reflecting on this, thinking, okay, well, what do I think about coaching and how do I perceive it? That was one of my words too. So we definitely match in that regard. And I think that's the beauty of it. Now, from my perspective, you know, I'm an organizer. I started as a professional organizer, moved into productivity coaching and stress management and understanding how everything is connected. I love Venn diagrams and I love comparisons. And when I hear the word coaching, I also think of consulting. That's used a lot. So I love the idea of comparing the two, and I hope this is helpful. For me, consulting is this idea of someone, you know, again, having a conversation with you, exploring, but they're doing the assessment and offering recommendations, which can definitely be helpful. It can be helpful in business. And I have put that hat on sometimes for people, you know, especially if there's some kind of system that they're trying to create. But the coaching side of it, where I love and I love to be the most, is this idea of asking the questions. And I always say, I don't have your answers. I have really good questions that are going to help you find your answers. And to me, coaching is eliciting and encouraging through those questions. helping you discover what your possibilities are. See, that was that same word for me.
Right.
And the idea of, how best for you to pursue them. And I often talk about the number one tool for us in terms of productivity, because I'm a productivity coach, but to me, it's the number one tool for living well, I think, is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And coaching does that. It helps you have a better understanding of you and how, like you said, with relationships, it's all relational, how you interact with your world. And when you have a better understanding of how you interact with your world, that impacts your choices, whether it's the perceptions that you have, how you choose to respond to things, or the practices that you put into place. So that's how I see coaching.
Right. I love that. So there were a few things that came up for me while you were speaking. I always tell my clients, you're in the driver's seat, but I'm holding the GPS. You
Nice.
decide how fast we accelerate or when we put on the brakes. You decide, but I'll be there. I'll be holding the GPS. And the other thing that you were saying that just took my mind, and let me just come back to, yes, is about self. It's about consciousness. If we don't bring self-awareness and consciousness to our behavior, to our actions, it just sticks with us. It will follow us, and reactivity to our world will keep coming up. We'll keep being triggered if we're not sure why we're responding like that and how. And my understanding of self, which is such a big word, is there's my personal self, there's me, my feelings, my inner world, but there's also myself as perceived by you, by the other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hopefully always in a sense of flow, that I'm looking at what's going on for me while Lisa's talking to me, and what is going on, what's coming from Lisa to give me more information about me. Because I have my perception of me, but you have a different perception. In you, there's a little Bev. And in everybody who's watching, there's a little Bev. And it's not the same. But for me, that flow of information with my outside world helps me know myself that much better too.
Right. And so I'm thinking about the idea of, what you say, says something about you, and what I hear says something about me. So that's the relationship there, right? And
And the
then,
curiosity, what do you
right,
say?
right. And I think when we have that self-awareness, to me, what's important as the next step, and this of course affects our relationships, is self-acceptance. And I think that's where it can be so tricky, because it's very easy to, when we are aware of something that we do, maybe not being so happy with it, but understanding, at least I find with my clients, that once they understand, okay, this is how I work, and we come from that place of curiosity, like you said, when you're curious, you can skip the judgment, stay curious, and then the judgment won't come in and attack you in that moment, because you're just seeking to understand. And that's the beauty of it. And when you do that for yourself, I mean, that shifts everything. Then you can say, okay, so that is
Right.
how I work. Okay, is there a way that I can change that? Or is there a way that I can change what it is that I do to work with that? And that's my favorite thing to do with
Right.
clients, is to say, lean into it, whatever this
Right.
is, right?
Right. The self-compassion and the forgiveness that you speak of, I find it comes just after I ask people to just notice what's going on for them. Feeling sad and feeling angry. Let's not judge it. Let's not change it.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that noticing comes that, let's just notice and be curious about it. And then the judgment can fall away. I see, this is how I react. Because I always tell people, we're not born today. We're born into a stream, a river that's flowed from our parents. It's been flowing since our grandparents, since thousands and thousands of years, with so much wisdom that's come into us. And let's
Oh, I
just
love
notice
that. I love that.
what's coming in for us. And we're perfect as we are right now.
And there's a phrase in there. There's a phrase that I'm going to end up putting on Twitter. Let's not judge it. Let's not change it. And I
Oh,
like,
beautiful.
that's so good, Bev, because that is that the permission to be curious, because I think we do get ahead of
Right.
ourselves. We think, okay, let's find the problems, let's fix the problems. And one of my favorite quotes, I might be paraphrasing her, but it comes from Sophia Bush, and it's, you're allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
And I love
Beautiful.
that, because we do need to celebrate and embrace and have compassion for and appreciation of where we are right in this moment and how we show up.
Absolutely.
I've been seeing things online lately that you're not broken, you don't need to be fixed. It's, that's not the
Exactly.
thing. So, and I love that you bring that kindness and compassion to what you do in coaching.
Right. I always
Ah,
tell my clients, I'm not here to fix you, and I'm not here to judge where you come from. I don't want us to judge your parents. I don't want to even understand your early attachments.
right.
What we do want to understand is just the impact that it's having on you now. Because
Yeah,
we were given hurts and wisdoms from our parents, things that they didn't resolve, we were given.
right.
Let's just see what's coming up for you now, because that is the reality. Even though you might not be living as a 3-year-old, you have an impact from those early attachments into how
Right.
you're behaving now.
And
So I love that.
everything that we
And
have
now,
been, oh,
sorry,
that's okay. Go ahead.
I'm just curious now, the way I presented my work and the way you present your work, how does that connect? How do we connect this kind of openness, this curiosity to systems? I spoke about clarity coming up to systems. You said systems. You said organization,
Mhm.
because that's really very often when we're in control, when we feel safest, when we feel I know what's the next step that's coming. It's when we're lost and we don't know, that
Mhm.
we feel uncertain. So, and that's where a lot of my clients are, and I love to sit in that place. But I also love the organization. So I'd like you to speak more into that, if you may,
Oh,
please.
yeah, I'd love to. And, I think part of it too is that Zen philosophy, if you will, of really not having the control and understanding that. But there's a certain element in what I help my clients with, which is the idea of setting yourself up to understand and be prepared and act as proactively as you may. You talked about being reactive, and
Right.
it's fine. We are meant to react. That's who we are. But I think the more understanding that we have, the more tools we have in our toolbox to handle life, if you will, the more we're able to be proactive. And so you talk about structure and organizing. Let's use time management as an example. When I
Mm.
help someone set up how they are spending their time, we pay attention to their values and what's important, what's really driving them forward as a person, how they want to show up in this world. So if they're understanding what really matters, what they need to do for their families, whatever it happens to be, we can find the places in their day where they can pay attention to that, to put their energy forth with that, but also understand where their energy comes from and when it waxes and wanes, and how best to structure that. The other thing I absolutely love to
Mm.
do, and it seems like sorcery but really it isn't, is creating so much buffer in between all the things we're doing, the appointments that we're having. Case in point, today you and I both had tech issues before we met, and because we both had a lot of buffer between our other between this and our other appointments, it allowed us to have the grace and the flexibility to say it's okay, we can meet a half an hour later, we can make this work. It kept our stress low, or lower anyhow. I mean, I was a little stressed for a moment, but it's the idea of having an impact on all these aspects of our health and our wellness and how we're living when we have that structure in place that gives us the flexibility, and it really reflects what we value.
Wow. I love that. You were talking about this is the path. I always say to our clients, it's not that this challenge is in your way, and when it's out of your way, then you'll be able to meditate or find a contemplative practice. No, this is your path. And one of the things I took away, and that I need to practice again and again. What I took away from what happened between us today was we constantly communicated. Is it okay to move it off? There seemed to be, I didn't feel any anger. And if it hadn't worked out for today, then I would have believed it wasn't supposed to.
Right.
This is the path. You know, unexpected things came up on both our ends. That's just the way of the world. We're not always in control. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so again, you know, that the structure of what we did, and even if it's, you know, if it's intrinsic, you know, and of course I do coach it, but it's this idea of creating that space, and that space allows us to flow through whatever happened. And we each had a choice as to how we responded. And we even have a choice,
Right.
because at first I responded kind of stressed and frustrated. And then I had the choice to change that and say, well, let me check with Bev. And you're right, we communicated. So yeah, there are so many life lessons wrapped up
That's
into.
that's part of the curiosity. Let me just see, maybe Bev is flexible today.
Right.
Okay, but if I don't ask the question, I'll never know.
That's right.
So that's what I love as we're coming, I see, to the end of our conversation.
Yeah.
Is that we can always react in a minute without being informed, but we have the ability to respond, and that's the mature adult who can choose how to respond. If I just take a minute and I'm informed by what's going on, rather than without the information, I just react.
That's right. That's right. So speaking of being curious,
Yeah.
I think this would be great to ask everyone who's listening right now, what are you curious about? What can we continue to talk about? Because I think we'd love to do this again, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I know this has been helpful for so many.
good.
I do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to put that question down.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we're curious about where we're going with this author and
right. So
conversations.
We invite you to be curious with us. What would you like to continue to talk about? Some of the things we mentioned, which I'll just bring up again, that we did hear that were some points of curiosity, were about, you know, resiliency, and about the things that we're going through right now globally, in terms of maybe not feeling so safe. Or I think it really just comes down to uncertainty. I know we're all feeling that a great deal. Is that something you'd like to hear us talk about? Or is there something else? We would love to hear from you, message or comment, whatever way that you can reach us. We would love to respond to that. Right, Bev?
Fabulous. Absolutely. And thanks for being with us today.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, everyone.